Welcome to Inside Singapore Sports Business, the show that features key opinion leaders who have influenced and shaped Singapore's sports industry. We also bring you exciting behind-the-scenes insights about major events and competitions in Singapore. This show is brought to you in collaboration with Sports Singapore and the Tote Board. I am Adele, your host, and today we are at Gamescom Asia 2021 at Suntec Convention Center. We are bringing you two special ISSB episodes here at Gamescom Asia. Today's topic at the ISSB Gamescom Asia 2021 edition is esports. We will be filming all of the action and talking to many guests from the gaming industry throughout the day. So are you ready? Set? Let's go! So we have with us Michael Chung from Makers Fund to share with us a little bit more about esports and a little bit about the NFT space in the gaming industry. So Michael, can you please tell us what is esports and what is its role, you think, in the gaming industry?
So we all know how mainstream the gaming industry has become. It's being part of the Olympics. It's kind of got some of the most hours watched on Twitch. And really what esports is it is quintessentially one of the main ways that gaming interacts with the mainstream audience in terms of media, in terms of engagement, and also in terms of sponsorship dollars and ad revenue. So, all of the big events that we've come to know and love, such as, the Dota International, and the League of Legends kind of global finals, this is essentially what the esports industry is. And it's probably one of the main driving factors of where we are seeing non-endemic brands such as Coca-Cola, such as Pringles, really interact and collide with the gaming giants such as Tencent, Riot, and Supercell.
So in your experience, having been in the gaming industry for a while, what do you think is the potential of esports in this part of the world, in Asia, specifically maybe Singapore even?
Yeah, so the beautiful thing about esports is that it is so accessible, right? I mean, essentially there's competition, and it is a way for people to take a side, really support something, and for a country really to host an event. And so one of the themes globally is, as driven by Activision Blizzard with some of its Overwatch studios, or League of Legends with its franchise teams, it is really creating a reason for people to either travel to countries and also to kind of invest and kind of monetize some of the teams that are really kind of dominating the global marketing scene right now in terms of engagement and minutes watched on YouTube and Twitch and Facebook. So I think where Singapore comes into play is, and it is already coming to play, is it can be an incredible kind of footfall and tourism driver, as well as kind of placing it on the map in terms of having a hub for people to go to. I mean, if you look at the latest Valorant finals being hosted in Iceland, it's finding a reason for people to travel to Iceland without it being about a volcano, right? So, I think it really is a very interesting strategy for Singapore to gain kind of more mainstream awareness and people really to come and experience the live events that are really invigorating for the industry.
You're right, and there's so many interesting games out there and it keeps evolving. We're curious, as a VC fund, what would you look for in a game?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, the gaming industry is deep and vast. There are probably just as many people making games now, as there are making, movies or music or any other form of entertainment. And so, the really interesting thing is there's a lot of almost cultural understanding that we try to put into our decision making. We also think a little bit about what are the consumer trends, what do players expect over the years, what are the gameplay mechanics that are truly innovative. And if you think about some of the biggest successes over the years, let's say the last 3-4 years, with games like Fortnite, games like PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, Minecraft, really each of them were really innovating in something that was not explored before, right? Be it creativity, be it battle royale, be it just simply an art style. And so, when we look at that, we like to think about what is the creative innovation, what is the reason for the team to work on this genre, and also does the team really have the capability and the access to the funding to really accelerate that. And that's where we come into play, right? So we're really excited to meet teams who are trying to innovate on a genre, and also create games that have a 10-year lasting life cycle, right? And I mean, all the esports games we talked about earlier, they're games that have been around for many years, right? Counter-Strike, League of Legends, Mobile Legends, bit of an exception, but still very relevant. Free Fire, and yeah, that's exactly what we're looking for.
Side question, do you have any personal favorites in terms of game genre?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm quite omnivorous when it comes to game genres. I tend to play a lot of casual puzzle games on mobile. I also play a lot of shooters. Actually, 20 years ago, 20 years ago, I myself used to be a competitive Counter-Strike player. Didn't make much money because there wasn't any money in the industry back then. But yeah, so everything from FPS to MOBAs to puzzle games, even RPG. So I'm very omnivorous. If I had to pick one, I'm personally very excited by what we call the PvE co-op genre, which is basically imagine you're fighting a common enemy, which is the computer, but you're playing with your team. So it's more about cooperation and how you beat an enemy or a task together. And I personally think it's very underexplored in the industry today.
All right, potential game developers out there, I think you've heard that. Well, thank you very much. We have with us Michael Chang from Make Us Fun today. Now we have with us Raymond from Koei Tecmo. Raymond, can you tell us a little bit about the kind of games that you guys do at Koei Tecmo?
Our company does games from PC, console to mobile, and cover all the different genres from simulation to action, fantasy, RPG, whole gamut of it actually.
Actually, I actually know because I'm a huge fan of Romance of Three Kingdoms. That's one of your games, right? I think I used to play it on the PlayStation, but that's been going on for many, many years. Can I ask you, what is your perspective of the esports industry?
I think this industry is getting exciting. I think in some sense because sports, the physical one, right, due to the current situation, right, a lot of people are actually moving towards watching some of this digitally. And I think you see a lot of the younger generation are steering away from TV, watching entertainment more directly through your other channels, right, through digital means, and therefore esports is definitely one of the things that they're looking out for. The excitement of people getting in, maybe even playing some of the games that they themselves are playing, trying to see how professional players are doing it, and then maybe trying to see if they could themselves, right, nurture their own skills to become the next great professional player. Definitely, I think there is a whole, ecosystem here that is starting to evolve as well.
Do you think that there might be any genre of games that maybe you guys have that is more suitable for the esports market?
We ourselves actually have some games that I would say currently in the esports market, what is maybe popular, action-based, or could be maybe say more fighting-based kind of games where people can immediately interact and see that it's a one versus one PvP kind of games. We ourselves also have quite a number of PvP games, but maybe more in the traditional era of gameplay where people will need to level up. In the esports, of course, you're looking at players, not so much of what they have accumulated in the characters, but really their own skill sets as well, right? So I think that also will involve gameplay design on a different nature to move towards that. And I think more and more companies are trying to get into that space as well.
So how about you guys? Do you have any plans to move into the esports industry anytime soon?
I think that's definitely something we are always looking out for and trying to see what's happening in the space. Yeah.
Do you think Singapore would be a good spot, or Singapore or Asia, this part of the world, for the esports industry, especially since you guys are a Japanese-based company?
Maybe I'll comment more about the Singapore portion, it being a hub for people. I think not only physically but digitally as well. It's probably easier to bring together people from different parts of the world and different regions here, and then trying to bring together financial resources to organize something of that nature. Definitely we can expect to see something a little bit more interesting and exciting happening along those lines there.
Cool. Thank you so much for your time, Raymond. Now we have with us Samson O, the CEO at Gosu Gamers and co-founder of Team Flash and Cargo Studio. Samson, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself as well as the three companies?
Thanks for having me. I own multiple esports and gaming setup, but since you already mentioned three, I'm going to explain to you the three setup that we have, right? So when it comes to esports and gaming, and when I explain to you the three companies that we have, Gosu Gamers basically is like a ESPN of esports. I always remember when I first started in esports, I couldn't even find scores, match information, and tell myself I grew up with ESPN. I want to be an ESPN of esports, and that's how we started. So what happens is that last year I bumped across this company and we just bought it from Europe. And this is a company that talks about publishing of esports news, player transfer and all this, right? The second one is Team Flash. Team Flash I started few years back, about 5 years back, where it's a talent agency. We go around hiring all these gamers, potential gamers, turn them into professional athletes. And a lot of them represented countries. And I always remember some of them represented country and they went to Asia Games. And they're supposed to go for SEA Games as well in this quarter, but it has been postponed. Last but not least is Cargo Studio. Cargo Studio is my latest so-called venture because I believe in helping the kids or the next generation to equip them with the right skills to know how to go out to the industry because the markets can be quite brutal. When the market is brutal, you want to give them a chance to make it on their own in building games. Yeah.
Wow. So it sounds like you have almost pretty much full service esports industry cornered here in Singapore. In your opinion, how has the gaming industry in Singapore evolved over the last 10 years? Or it sounds like you've started even earlier than that. How has it evolved?
I actively in this industry for 5 or 6 years. When it comes to Singapore or Southeast Asia, I felt the game industry has stagnated. When it comes to that industry, there are two parts to it, right? You're talking about the indie studio. You're talking about the big companies, the AAA studios like those Riots and Montoon. Those studios doing very well. A lot of them moved to Singapore. I think thanks to EDB. EDB doing a great job in bringing all these companies in, created a lot of jobs. But on the other hand, the indie studios, I felt they are struggling. Maybe 2 or 3 managed to sustain themselves, but generally I felt that startup or the indie scene, that has stagnated. But recently, because of the COVID, thanks to COVID, even though I shouldn't say that, but COVID has accelerated that because of the acceptance of games generally in the culture. And a lot of kids, games is no longer a hobby recently. Games became a culture. If it's a culture, means you will see these things, you just go out, right? You know everyone stuck at home. What do? You play games.
Wow. So actually at Cargo Studios, you guys are giving local gamers, earlier you mentioned, indie studios in Singapore a platform to launch their games as well. What do you see as the opportunities and challenges for up and coming game developers here in Singapore and I guess in this part of the world, in Asia?
When it comes to, let's talk about people who graduated from schools, the gaming school or the design school or art school, people who wants to get into the gaming scene, it's very difficult. I will always remember we had so many of those students or even public people that came to us. They failed so many times, right? They failed not because they're not trying. They just, generally gaming is not very accepted. Only recently government start to put money in, start to really want to believe in this. But the reality is it's very difficult. Building a games is like starting a company. It's not just about the game. It's about the marketing partnership. You need a lot of skills. Unfortunately, a lot of people are not equipped with that, despite I have a degree. Right. So for me, Cargo Studios serve a purpose. We want to help those next generation to realize their dreams, but on the other hand, we will fill up those gaps that they can't get from the education systems. right? I was just talking, we went to a few schools, we were just talking about this alternative careers. In schools, if you raise your hand, you say you want to become a YouTuber, you are abnormal, right? So, but the reality is, you ask 10 kids outside, 7 of them will tell you that I want to become a YouTuber, I want to become a digital content creator, I want to build games, I want to be involved in games, right? So that tells you Cargo Sudo is trying to play a part to smoothen that process for those people who wants to be a part of this. And you don't need to be a doctor or engineer to sustain yourself. Trust me, you can make games and make tons of money on that.
Right. So you sound like a very big picture kind of guy, and you've looked at the entire esports industry, and you have, considered many aspects of it. And it sounds like education is one of them. Are you doing anything more with the schools? Are you developing any programs that can help our next generation of gamers and game developers? What do these programs look like?
So we engaged with the ministries before we brought it up. We have to go to grassroots. The reality is, in this country or every countries, when people talk about esports, people think of events, having big events, having thousands of people coming in, bringing in the visitors' monies in, tourist monies in. But people neglected the education part. People neglected the talent part. How can we impart the skills to the kid? We went around all schools trying to do that, but it's very difficult. The mindset of the educators have not shifted. Gaming is a taboo word in education ministry, education sector, all this. But we found a school, and recently we published a PR. We've signed an MOU together with Axial Education. They have schools in 3 or 4 countries, 30 to 40,000 students. In Vietnam, in Malaysia, in Singapore as well. So they started to build a stadium, esports stadium in the school. And they're building clubs, and they want us to be part of that, to impart our realities into those kids. That you have certain path that you can take, okay? And you can make a living out of that, but they want them to experience that. So we are collaborating with them, we are sending, so next time they can come to our studio, come to our incubator, just to see what is the real stuff that's happening, right? Or maybe work with our pro players. We'll tell them what it means to become a professional gamers. So all these things we will instill with them. So we want to start from the ground up. It's no longer about events. It's really about going deep to the community and tell them there's hope there.
Are you doing this under Team Flash, your talent management?
Yes, we are doing this under Team Flash because that's the easiest to relate. But actually at the back, we are availing all our companies, different pillars of esports and gaming. If you want to become game developer, you come to these companies, right? Come to Cargo Studio. If you want to talk about pro gamers, you go to Team Flash, right? If you want to talk about broadcast, you go to another company, right? If you want to talk about publishing and marketing or sales, you come to, or you want to talk about journalism, you come to Gosu Gamers. So we have different setups to serve different type of students or the young people. Yeah.
So then let me invite you down to look just a few more years down the line. There's a lot of discussion already about including esports into the Olympics. What is your view on that?
This is a topic that is heavily discussed. And I will always remember when I first started Team Flash 5 years ago, the first thing I said, we will put esports in major events. And we managed to put our team representing the country during Asia Games in Jakarta and Palembang last few years. And when it comes to the Olympics, I truly believe it will happen. The GEG, which is the Global Esports Federation, GEF, already organizing global esports games. What it means is that is a very different format, where it's country versus country, no longer team versus team. That is already, you see, the beginning of government accepting that. And trust me, I believe the next Olympic that is coming in, I believe will be in LA. We will have a demo sport. And after that, 4 years after that, you see the first medal for Olympics. Olympics needs esports. Esports don't need Olympics. That's my positioning. We have the community. Olympics don't have. The sports are all dying. Less and less people are watching physical games. People love virtual games, but I still believe the physical side of it needs to be there as well, and they can coexist. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing your deep passion for esports and for building all these different pillars that the next generation of gamers and YouTubers can turn to. Lastly, can you just share with us the roadmap for the rest of your plans for your different companies and how they can all work together? What's coming up for you?
For me, is I know our times are limited. For me, I feel I come to an age where we need to make it big. And I really believe, and a lot of people talking about Western companies, Western IP. It's really not about that. I think we have enough talent, whether it's pro gamers, whether it's developing a games, whether it's marketing. We have enough great talents in Asia, even from Singapore. And we can create a lot of things just from Singapore, made in Singapore, and export it out. And that is my goal. I want to bring all these companies to become global, and one day we will have a made in Singapore companies to be where they are, which is global, and we will achieve that, I'm very sure, because esports or gaming is a digital industry. It's no longer about this country or this, it's about the community. When it comes to the community, whether it's Brazil, whether it's Malaysia, whether it's Indonesia, Myanmar, they're all the same. Yeah, we can just approach them, no problem. Yeah.
Actually, can you share with us a little bit about the esports, the professional gamers in Singapore? What are their demographics like? What is the age range? Are they able to sustain themselves?
When it comes to the age, I can tell you, I have people asking us to be a part of the team at the age of 15. There are people who are that good. 15, they can represent the team, play at the global stage. But it comes to a point where sometimes we need to make certain policy because they are not ready. They are ready as a gamer doesn't mean you are ready as a pro gamer. When you want to become a pro gamer, you have to stay in a gaming house. You are being fed, trained, everything goes through. You need to go through your studies. Please complete that. When you complete that, you need to go to NS, please go to NS. When you come out, be a part of the team. And the demographics is really that. It's really that age, but generally, I can tell you the right age is after NS. If other countries, it will be younger as well. And that is the age that is right for them to do it. Yeah. But a lot of people needs to understand this. Professional gamers and gamers are two different things. Okay? I love to play games, and I'm playing games for a living are two different things. I have gamers who make $50 a month, and now they make $10,000 a month. Okay? That is excluding their prize money. Prize money can be a few hundred thousands, and some gamers earn millions, but my gamers earn a few hundred thousand. They are that good. But it's also our job to make sure that that's why this is the difference between gamers and program. We have to tell them your life is short as a gamer. What do you do after that? You need to save all your money and study, so that because after 27 years old, you can't play the game anymore. You're very slow. When you're very slow, you are no longer good anymore. At least you can go up to 33 to 35. Pro gamers, 26, 27, we are gone. So that's where we will help them to move them to the back office, to the marketing, and help them to give them a career and to continue from that. I think that's what I'm trying to do, to give a bit of hope to them, to know that there is a path for them in this industry. That's all about it.
So actually, professional gamers can start at 15, but you recommend that they finish their studies and NS first, and then their lifespan is still about
26,
27. Wow.
Generally.
Okay. And you're saying that even in Singapore, the earning potential can be like 6 figures.
7 figures as well. We have millionaire gamers.
Mostly sponsorship money, or like where does this where did the income come from? Tell all the parents.
I think there are a few parts to make money for gamers. Is sponsorship is one of them. I think the other one is endorsement. Prize money is huge. Right? Prize money can be huge. You look at Dota now, 40 over million prize pool. I was like 40 over million. Wow. If the winner gets about, I remember it's 18 million if I'm not mistaken. Right? A lot of money. and you can in various ways, but you need to be very good. Good is not good enough. You need to be special to be at that level.
What makes them special?
I think a bit of everything: mental agility, reflexes, and the way they think, adaptability. A lot of stuff. It's just like playing chess, right? How do you make sure that chess is? They need to be smart, and most of those gamers are really smart people. They anticipate very well. You need to know about this. You need to understand the strategy part. There's another part very important. How do you play with the team? Playing in a team digitally, that requires a different skill. So all these things need to come into it, together with the right coaches, the right setup, right infrastructure, right support, right media training. You can go very far, and you can become a rock star. But again, it's not. I have to admit, it's not an easy journey. It's really.
Girls in the professional gaming.
In fact, I just had an interview talking about this. This morning, someone from US called me. We want to push for female agenda, exclusivity for female gamers. Yes, that demographics is growing, and when it comes to girls tend to be slightly higher in terms of loyalty. And when girls get into something, they are more addicted than the guys. And you can see the numbers are growing in the girls. So there are certain leagues in US, even certain female esports tournament just for female. All this has already started. When I first started my company in Gosu Gamers, I hired a female marketing by bringing all the female, because I felt female give us a different perspective to gaming.
Wow, that's excellent. Well, I'm really thankful that in Singapore we have you guiding our generation of esports players. And thank you very much for your time today, Samson. Good luck. And now we have with us Adam from Junkfish to tell us a little bit more about the kind of games that you guys do over at Junkfish.
So hi, we're Junkfish. We make kind of games primarily for PC, but we also do console as well, and we are expanding onto other platforms. So we make games primarily for kind of like the North American, Western Europe, and kind of Japan and Korean markets as well, for kind of mid to hardcore gamers. The kind of genres we do, so we have two IP. One is more kind of horror based, called Monstrum. Started out as a kind of single player experience. Now we're working on a sequel which has kind of a asymmetric multiplayer. It's basically an asymmetric multiplayer game, and we also do turn-based strategy games as well.
So I think you were sharing with us that you're based now in where are you based?
So our development team is primarily in the UK. Though we do have a few more remote workers outside the UK, and we also have a small team in Singapore as well.
So how would you compare, if you had to compare, how do you compare the market, the games market in Europe versus the one in Asia?
So I think the tastes in Asia are quite different. On the, I think there's a lot more focus here on kind of competitive games and esports as well. There's a heavy influence on that kind of stuff. Whereas in I guess in Europe and stuff, there's also more kind of story-driven games. There's more kind of story-driven games and other kind of aspects as well. But in Asia, there's very much a focus on multiplayer kind of competitive games and esports.
And then where do you see the future of games going over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, it's a big question. I think when it comes to like multiplayer games as well, it's already kind of very focused on kind of analytics and kind of analytics-based decision making. It's because because of how online games are and how connected they are. It's very important to track players' behavior and trends and stuff like that. So analytics is key as a kind of core for decision making there. The other thing as well is probably, I'm just trying to think. I think of course there's cloud gaming and streaming as well. Games are more accessible now on different platforms, so I guess I think that will continue to be more accessible for more people as well.
Cool. All right. Have a good rest of the evening here at Gamescom Asia.
Awesome.
Thank you. next up, we have with us Pontus Mailer, an ex-professional gamer and current game investor. So Pontus, you've been around the world. We'd really, really appreciate your perspective about gaming tournaments in Singapore.
Yeah, no, like you mentioned, I've traveled around the world both for esports as well as the video game industry, and I think, Singapore in particular, we had a major quite recently, and most importantly, I think Singapore in general just wants to support the entire industry, and I think that's what's more important. So I'd rather look at the future about what Singapore is going to be doing for the industry, and I know they're doing a lot. They're helping us here today where we have our own event, and the Singapore Tourism Board helped us bring in foreigners even during a COVID, so we're super thankful to them for helping us. So I think that they're very, very structured. It's a good country to have because, it's very high technology. It's easy to get into the country. The airport's very good. A lot of direct flights, so you can get in people. Also, visa approvals are very easy. So, if players want to come here to actually play esports tournaments, it's quite easy. So I would say it's a perfect hub to launch your tournament.
Well, then what are some of the benefits of esports in terms of, working with players or for businesses to get involved in esports as well?
Yes, I want to start with a negative point and twist to positive. So there is something that a lot of kids in particular in school think esports isn't that easy. I know that, I've done a lot of lectures at schools and everybody's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be an influencer. I want to be a pro gamer. Yes, it's not that easy. You have to practice so hard. And you need to have that mental capacity of actually playing 12, 16 hours a day and then still hang out with friends and family, right? And also education. A lot of kids replace education with games, which I did myself and I do not recommend to other people. So I don't have a college degree, for example, because I became an esport player and I was one of the lucky ones who managed to succeed in the industry. Doesn't mean anybody else will. It's not something I would recommend. So please do finish school first and please take care of yourself. Make sure that you eat healthy food, you do exercise, and that is something that is really good nowadays. So all the esport teams, they have coaches, they have health people that actually take care of you. So you'll get a diet, you'll get to go to the gym, and they're not forcing you, but they're very much advising you. Complexity in all these teams in America, Southeast Asia as well, they're really recommending their players to get a lot of exercise and work out. So nowadays it's better, but back in my days it was a little bit harder. So yeah, that's the first thing. The second thing, of course, it's just an amazing industry. What other sport do we have where any age, regardless if you're a very large person, a very skinny person or whatever, you can compete on the same level, right? It's all about that mental capacity, about the skill, and it's all about just showing the world who you are and what you can do. You can't do that in football. If you have a 13-year-old versus a 29-year-old, the 29-year-old is probably going to kick your butt, So in esports, age doesn't matter. It's all about skill, which I think is really, really awesome. And for brands, you get access to so many people with the same interest. If you look at football, right, it's the same kind of mentality. Everybody likes to play football or watch football, and they follow it very dearly. In esports, there are so many different types of football, so to speak. There's Fortnite, there's Call of Duty, there's Dota 2. There are so many different games, which are actually different sports, you could say. But it's the same kind of audience. One player might play 4 different of these sports. So as a brand, investing into this industry, you can find so many people in your target market. So if you sponsor, if you support tournaments, if you attend events, you can find a lot of customers. So if you are a brand and you're not already involved in esports and gaming, you're doing something wrong.
Wow, spoken like a true expert. I'm sure you make a great mentor to a lot of these aspiring gamers. How would you compare the climate now? You're saying that the kids now are very lucky, but then now you make us curious. How was it back then and compared to now?
Yeah, so back then, we did not have these massive salaries. We did not have millions and millions of followers. We did not have mentors, no, because we were kind of the first people that came in. My first tournament, I think I made like $2,000 USD, and I was, of course, super excited. I think I was 13 years old, so it was a great achievement. Yeah, so that was good. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, but nowadays, the 13-year-olds are making millions, right? So there is a player, for example, that I played with called Mikke in Team Liquid in Dota 2 right now. He was my old teammate back in Harrison Newerth. And, they're making a lot of money, right? They have a lot of sponsorships and a lot of support. So back then, we were on our own. There were no coaches. There were no people booking our travel. Our parents helped us. Our parents paid for our flights and our hotels, if they supported us. Because back then, it wasn't as socially acceptable to actually play games. So not every parent were there as supports. So when I moved to Thailand and continued to play professionally, some of my players, their parents never showed up. They didn't want to support. They thought it was not okay. You should be a doctor. You should be a lawyer. The standard stuff. And you're like, come on, these kids are making good money. because they were actually making more than their parents, but it wasn't socially acceptable. So I think from going from there to now, I think gaming is pretty much getting accepted everywhere. We still have a couple of hoops to go. Since I'm Swedish, I'm allowed to say bad things about my country. And the fact that we didn't allow the International 10 to happen on Swedish soil due to not accepting visas was a very big disappointment. And I think that it really is anti what we're supposed to be doing. Romania picked up the event, and TI10 is happening right now. Sadly, because of COVID, there's no live audience. But the point here is that we are very much in the future. We're going in the better way, but we're not fully there yet. I think today we have coaches, we have esport teams, we have government supporting, we have esport visas, and we're just going to keep building things to a much better spot.
And do you think that brands and businesses, I know you mentioned that tournament money is so much different now, and how are brands, getting sponsors, getting brands to actually invest? How is it different then and compared to now? What kind of difference in money are we talking about?
Yeah, so my first sponsor was Logitech, and shout out to you guys. I only got products every month, but that's what I wanted actually. So I walked up to them in DreamHack and I was like, hey, I'm looking for a sponsor for my stream, 13, or 12 even. And I want some products for my stream to give away to grow my stream. They said yes, and we worked together for 2.5 years, I think. And then ultimately I got more, but it's not compared to today. Our first cash sponsorship, paid our flights and our hotels. That was like the initial sponsorships back then. Nowadays, we're talking millions of dollars. You're looking at Cloud9, you're looking at all these things. Actually, one deal was publicized recently. FTX, a crypto website, paid $200 million for a 5-year partnership. That's pretty crazy. That's pretty much the last 20 years, for our industry. So everything is just looking so much better. And we have non-endemic sponsors, right? So we have brands that aren't gaming brands at all. We have clothing brands. In Denmark, Astralis got sponsored by Jack and Jones, I think. I could be wrong on the brand, but we have that. We have Nike partnering up with LCS. So there's so many cool things going on right now. And it's comparing the money, it's peanuts versus millions.
Well, definitely sounds like a really, really exciting space to be in, and we're glad that you're still around. Are you still mentoring young esports players these days, or are you mostly just investing?
So I lecture at schools every now and then to basically be that one person that tells people don't just try to become an esport pro, don't just try and become an influencer. I give them all the warnings what not to do, and I also tell them it's not easy, because I don't want thousands of kids just to skip school just to become esport gamers. The reality is, just like sports, there's a limited amount of people that can do this for a living. It will always be like that. Do you have Zlatan in football? You're going to have, No-Tail in Dota 2. And it's just going to keep being that really, really small group of people. So you might not succeed. So it's important you finish your education and take care of yourself. Other than lectures, nowadays I mentor in another way. So we do investments in startups for video games. So I basically invest in entrepreneurs rather than coaching, the players themselves, in companies that will make the games for the players later on, right? So I kind of went back a bit to the development of the games rather than the actual esport tournaments of the games.
Wow. Well, I'm really glad that you're in the space, glad they have you, and really happy that you spoke with us today. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So we're very happy to now also be able to talk to Mr. Gary Ma. He's the COO at Epic. And Gary, my team and I really enjoyed your presentation at Gamescom Asia 2021. Even though it was virtual, it was completely engaging. We felt like you were there, and therefore we really needed to have this virtual chat with you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no, it was my pleasure to be here. Yeah, unfortunately, we had to use my, my AI self at Gamescom this year. Hopefully, next time we'll be there in person to shake hands.
Yeah, for sure. I think even your AI self really taught us a lot. So we wanted to ask you, well, let's first talk about esports. Can you give us a brief introduction about, yourself and your involvement and your company's involvement, Epic's involvement in the esports space?
Yeah, thanks. Sure, I'd be happy to. Hi, everyone. My name is Gary Ma. I'm CEO of Epic. A little bit about me. I've been around cryptocurrency starting around 2013. So, I believe the industry is now transitioning into really large scale adoption and commercial use case. And that's really what we do at Epic. Prior to that, I worked with some of the biggest brands and celebrity artists producing, outdoor large scale music conferences and festivals. all across the world. So now at Epic, we work with some of the biggest brands in IP to create premium digital merchandise and collectibles. So in a nutshell, Epic is the leading B2B NFT company that works with AAA gaming platforms, as well as giant entertainment IP brands to create in-game NFT goods and marketplaces. So we do premium digital merchandise as an NFT platform. We have years of experience as a digital licensing agency, putting brands into games. Our current roster includes some of the biggest names like Tencent and Garena, Warner Music, Universal, and more. So at Epic with esports, we have a really keen eye towards esports and for developing the right strategy that is really going to help reshape the industry. Epic offers something extremely unique given our huge network of game clients and the fact that we work with over half of the top 25 game companies in the world. Many of them have huge esports elements to them. So in the past few months alone, actually, we've been meeting with some of the most well-known esports teams globally, as well as really heavily focused here in Southeast Asia as well. So we're not making any announcements just yet, but fans will see a lot more touch points from Epic in the esports industry, coming in the new year and beyond.
So, well, for the uninitiated, how would you briefly describe esports?
Esports, I would describe as it's a lifestyle and digital sport, right? It's lifestyle, unlike a good analogy maybe would be people that are familiar with basketball players and what it's represented in the current day. I mean, you're not just someone who plays basketball. You're like you're a baller. You're a basketballer, right? It's a whole lifestyle, and I think that's what it is for digital sport as well, which is what I would consider esports. It's a competitive platform for games. It combines entertainment and sponsorships, so there's revenue and monetization behind it all as well. And it touches on all aspects of our lifestyle, which is big brands, users, social interactive engagement. We wear it on our sleeve, that type of thing. So yeah, it's really evolved to be a lifestyle digital sport.
So which do you think for esports, which countries do you think have the fastest growing number of players, and why do you think that is? What's the driver?
Yeah, I mean, Asia, obviously, Southeast Asia, huge. Those are for sure. China, big numbers. These high population dense countries obviously have the numbers to assist with that. But I think other drivers are due to advances in smartphone technologies, with faster internet connection and more sophisticated mobile games. E-gaming is becoming accessible to all gamers, no matter where they are, where their location, their demographic or socioeconomic status, once they reach that little, minimal point of connectivity and all that stuff and hardware device. So yeah, I think some of those are really driving forward this accessibility into these regions, which make it vastly growing very quickly.
I'm gonna throw one more in there. What are some of the biggest esports tournaments you've seen or you've experienced at your time in esports?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of our clients here is locally, Garena. They're a great company, and obviously they have a couple of big titles. And I think this year, their Free Fire esports tournaments broke all the records in terms of like concurrent viewers and all this kind of stuff. So, for us, sorry, your question was like, who are the biggest?
What are some of the biggest esports tournaments you've seen or worked on? Yeah. So I mean that brings me to that point there about like Garena and those titles there. Some of the production level on these esports tournaments are just kind of going through the roof, so they're really exciting. Wow. And would you say that the prize money, because this is a business show, would you say that the prize money, have you seen a huge leap today as compared to maybe a few years ago?
I haven't been tracking in terms of like the actual prize money pools and how they've changed over time. And I'm sure it's gone through a couple of cycles ever since esports has gotten popularized over the past few years, right? And it's also going to be dependent on what's kind of happening on a macro level, right? I mean, the last year and a half we faced some unprecedented challenges with COVID, and then when it comes to like physical tournaments and those type of things, that business model obviously faced some challenges as a result of that. Some things did move towards a more virtual experience, but I do think esports, what does make it exciting is that kind of combination of the two, right? I mean, going back to what esports is and like whether or not, these are athletes and how you define them. I think having that kind of actual physical environment to produce this event is also an important part of the experience as well. So yeah, in terms of prize pools, haven't followed it too much in terms of where it's at right now, but I think more and more dollars are coming into the industry. But it's also about, they're also finding new ways to monetize and incentivize, and it's not always just about the prize pool, which is the single only, revenue mechanic that was available in the early days.
Yeah, true. There's sponsorships and everything. And now there are also early talks about, possibly bringing esports to the Olympics. What are your thoughts on that?
Esports in the Olympics, wow. Yeah, I think the debate is pretty healthy. We should always be pushing on the boundaries of things, and I think things should evolve. But at the same time, we have to stay true to the ethos of the Olympics. And there are fair arguments for and against, right? I mean, Olympic sports typically don't require any mechanical physical apparatus, right? And a computer is much different than a javelin pole, right? So I mean, it is kind of uniquely setting the bar differently there. And also at the same on the same rationale that has kept chess out of the Olympics, which is what are mind games. Those have also historically not met the bar. So I mean, we got to kind of look at those and kind of see where we lie on the spectrum. On the other hand, esports fills out the same criteria in traditional sports when it comes down to, discipline and the mastery of skill that's involved. So, personally, I would not object to having esports in the Olympics, and it has already made it into the Southeast Asian Olympics or Asian Games already. So, I mean, and that's sanctioned by the International Olympic Committee. So, the signal is looking like it could be pretty positive in the future for inclusion.
So Gary, we understand that you are currently based in Singapore with Epic, and I'd like to ask you, how do you see traditional sponsors, companies here, taking to sponsoring an esports team?
Yeah, I think they, by and large, see a lot of opportunity. I mean, when we started speaking with brands, as early as like late 2017, 2018, and even approaching them, with a very open-ended question of like how they're exploring the digital space with their brand and their opportunities. And it's still relatively new, right? And what happens is like games are kind of like a closed-off ecosystem. So, but with huge audiences, and brands recognize that, right? So about getting involved and getting in front of them, and also, having that positive association with their brand and the engagement for that in with this population. I don't mean in Southeast Asia, but I mean in the esports as a whole, I think has become a lot more well understood over the past few years, but I still think it has room to grow for that. And that's also not just because esports is dynamic, right? There's a lot of things that are involved with it. It's a media, entertainment type of thing. It's an event driven with the tournaments. And then now, with work that Epic is doing and really bringing a whole new dimension to the industry, which is digital merchandise, right? We've seen that through social media, direct-to-consumer merchandising is extremely powerful and can be extremely lucrative. And what's happening is now you get all this digital commerce that's going to be available, and digital merchandise that we're seeing proliferate through all these environments. When you kind of combine that all together, and then you talk to brands in terms of like, let's get you in front of new audiences, let's get you engaging with your audience in different ways, different touch points, and give you new mechanics, new ways to generate new revenue, merchandising revenue from your existing brand and products. I think when you add all that together, it's going to become extremely compelling for them. And the ones that are not in front of them, in front of these audiences, are going to be like people that are not in front of TV back in the day,
I think it sounds like there are many household brands who would be very fitting sponsors for the esports audience. Have you met any that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, the more traditional ones you see, I mean, the ones that have been proactive, you see on the jerseys right now, right? Those are the ones that kind of got in early and they're doing sponsorships. You're getting a lot more like, in-event placements and advertising. So, I mean, all the ones that you'd be familiar with are the ones that you actually see the logos around. And like I said, it's those premiums are going to continue to escalate over time, just like they did in the sports arena, like football stadiums, etc. That's always going to be there. and yeah, more and more brands are going to get familiar with this type of audience. So
they basically just move from the physical games to the digital sphere with esports.
yes, 100%. I mean, and the amount of hours and engagement you get in video gaming compared to regular traditional sports it dwarfs it. So I mean, when you add up those numbers and you're an advertiser or you're a marketer in these companies, I mean, it becomes very compelling very quickly.
Right. So then our next question will be, of course, about moving from the physical space, sponsors moving from physical space to the digital space, and then now to the crypto space. But we will ask you that in the next episode. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Del.
This concludes our first ISSB episode at Gamescom Asia 2021. We hope that you have gained some insights into the gaming and esports industries globally and here in Singapore. Make sure to catch us on our next episode where we explore the latest buzzwords, gaming and NFTs. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time.